Immigrants, illegal and legal, contribute more to our society than they take away. But the fact is, it's not so much they take jobs, but they suppress wages when it's illegal, because they can be taken advantage of and preyed upon by unscrupulous employers, and they are. And it also retards the assimilation process into American society. If we had a way for them to come out of the shadows and get documented and get on a pathway to full legal status, it would, I'm fully confident, based on the information that I was made privy to in the CFR task force, it would raise the wages of those at the bottom level of our society within 2 years about 10%.
I disagree with this data that they're citing, saying that there's no adverse impact on Native workers. The ones that are hurt the most are the low-skilled Americans, most of them African Americans, and there's a belief that this flood of immigrants in the country was deliberate to undercut African Americans because they were, you know, they were making demands. And so I don't want to, I mean, I'm not a person that likes to talk about race, but there's a sense that this labor was imported and it was encouraged to undercut African Americans. And when I look at what's happening in black communities, and if you look at the discrimination levels, the darker the person or the darker the immigrant, the more unemployment and the less wages they earn. And I can't help but think that at some part that racism is a part of what's going on, and that the immigrants are pawns the way blacks have been pawns. For Christians in those countries, I think they need to trust God. If they trust God, I think that they would maybe stay there and fight for better conditions for everyone. Instead of reforming the countries, we can't take everyone here. They need to be reforming their countries.
Surveys consistently show that if we had an immigration policy that allowed for guest workers, that where they could come safely across the border, if they were documented, and they could go safely back across the border and you know, make periodic visits home, that about 30% of the people who are here in illegal status don't want to be here permanently. They want to come here and make money and go home.
We need to address the situation, as Richard said. Those who are here, that came here, they need to acknowledge that they did something wrong. I think we all agree about the rule of law, securing our borders. That's something that I think most all Americans could agree on. What we need to do is figure out a way that they can pay the penalty for what they did. The law that they broke is not a criminal law; it's a civil law. So these people, by and large, are not criminals. There are a few criminals among them, just like there are criminals among those of us that are born here. And those we have to deal with in a criminal way. But for those who have committed the civil infraction of coming here without the proper documents and visa, they need to pay the penalty for what they did, go to the back of the line. We'd have to have some way then for them to earn the right to come here the way they should have in the first place.
There is a problem that sometimes comes when you bring in people and you don't give them the resources they need and they don't really assimilate. And so we have a problem in Minnesota and different places where, I mean, maybe you all don't consider it a problem, but where you have large groups of people that have different customs, they're not assimilating, and they want us to accommodate to their customs. And I think that you know, I think that's impossible. It's unreasonable. I don't think it will work. I think that America made a mistake somewhere along the way when it gave up on the ideal of the melting pot and trying to get people, you know, if you're going to remain in the country, to become American. And I think that that's the only way the American experiment will work. You cannot have so many people, you know, all clinging to that group interest and their separatistness. It will not work. And so I think that we have to bring in people that are fleeing for their lives, but at the same time encourage them to join the community. The purpose of the federalism was for each state to be able to make its own rules and regulations, and if people didn't like the policies of a particular state, they can always vote with their feet. We always have the latitude as American citizens.
I've challenged every Baptist church in America to start free English classes. There's a waiting list in some parts of the country for 6 months to get into English classes. I find the only ones who don't like the English requirement are American liberals who somehow haven't gotten it. You talk to the people who have come here, they understand learning to read, write, and speak standard English is the key to assimilation, and it's the key to the American dream, and they want it. They don't want their children to go to school and be taught in their native tongue. They want to learn English. The emphasis has got to be on the right syllable, and the emphasis has to be on the fact that we're going to be, Anglo-Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, but the emphasis has to be on American. And that is a commitment to a secular set of ideals embodied in the Declaration of Independence. And that's in English.
I think that we need to look at our refugee policies, and if we're not able to support people to the point that they're fully assimilated, then we don't need to keep bringing in people saying it's humanitarian when we're only going to support them for maybe a year, and then after that they're on their own.
We need to invest more in our public education system so that every child that goes through our schools comes out of it with the skills that are needed to compete in the global economy that we live in, and that there's a huge gap in what we're doing, and there's a lot of unevenness from community to community. Many churches are actually composed of immigrants, and immigrants are having a profound renewing impact on American churches, but because of the deep faith that they bring. In many of the NAE denominations, immigrants are the fastest growing part of our member denominations. So there's a lot that they also can contribute to us, and they could also be engaged in tutoring and other things with the poor in their own communities.
40% unemployment rate among young blacks with a high school diploma. They've made it through high school, graduated. We should, and they and others should be in the front of the lines for the jobs. The three things I would recommend are: one, employer sanctions. Hold the employers completely responsible to make sure they only hire legal workers. The E-Verify program is highly reliable. It's been around for more than a decade. It is the easiest way to forego the national ID route and not add burdens to the employers. It is an instant check system to ensure that the person who is before you is eligible to work in the United States. The third thing is enforcement. Back to the rule of law. You have to enforce the laws on the books consistently. That means in the workplace, at the border, in the interior, in your local communities, police having a role.
I think it's unfair to go back and apply the law when we haven't been applying it. I think we need to have a new immigration system that gives a one-time offer for people to come forward and to pay penalties and to undergo fines and to get legal. And we secure the border and we have control over the border, and then I have no problem with putting people in prison who employ people illegally. Until there are significant employer sanctions, we'll never get a full handle on this.
We don't have to overthink that the Lord has established civil authorities for a reason, and that's to protect the innocent and punish the wrongdoer. It's not that we have to overthink whether this little nuance of a given law is just or unjust, or we would tweak it. We're not going to obey it because it's a broken, dismiss it as a broken and flawed system. It may be a broken and flawed immigration system, but that doesn't mean it lacks moral authority.
We need to see immigrants as part of the solution, not as part of the problem. Immigrants come here with many new ideas, new energy, new hope, new vision, and we need to welcome that and find a way lawfully and systematically in an orderly way to welcome and embrace people that God has sent here from all around the world, learn from them, and together with them continue building the American experiment.
The church has taken up a social justice agenda that I don't see anywhere in the gospel that Jesus mandated. So I think that we would be better off if the church focused on ministering on the Great Commission and on making disciples and teaching its own members.